You call yourself an empath. And in doing so, you affirm your sensitivity as a gift. You say, I feel everything. I absorb what others cannot speak. I am a healer, a mirror, a light in the darkness. And the world, hungry for comfort, calls this a virtue. You are praised for your softness, admired for your selflessness, desired for your capacity to hold pain. But I must offer you a warning born not of suspicion, but of vision. This gift you cherish, this sensitivity you sanctify, carries a shadow darker than you may dare to acknowledge. And it is from this shadow that your suffering flows. Empathy, when unconscious, is not love. It is identification. It is not strength. It is leakage. It is not wisdom. It is projection wrapped in virtue. You absorb others because you have not learned how to hold yourself. You feel for everyone because it distracts you from feeling what lies unhealed in your own psyche. And when this pattern becomes your identity, you are no longer free. You are possessed not by spirits or demons, but by the split of fragments of your own unconscious, the ones that whisper, if I can feel them enough, they will not leave me. If I can heal them enough, I will not have to face the void within. You call it compassion. I call it shadow. I have seen many like you, those who wear light to conceal their darkness, those who love too quickly, help too easily, surrender too completely. You think you are rescuing others, but you are repeating an archetypal wound. You are the child who learned that love must be earned through self-erasure. You are the orphan who equated safety with emotional labor. You are the mystic whose connection to the invisible was never held, only used. And so you became the empath, the eternal giver, the sacred sponge. But I must tell you what the world will notice: roll, left unchecked, will consume you. The empath, when undeveloped, becomes food for archetypes. They cannot name. You are drained not by people, but by patterns. You are not suffering because others are broken. You are suffering because your unconscious is using them to reenact your own split. You feel everything, not because you are gifted, but because you are porous. And where there is no boundary, the psyche dissolves into chaos. I once had a dream. A woman stood in a forest, blindfolded, her hands stretched out in front of her. Around her were spirits whispering, pleading, clinging to her limbs. She said, I must help them. But the more she helped, the more her body disappeared. First her hands, then her chest, then her voice. She became mist, and still she whispered, they need me. I woke shaken. That woman was every empath who never asked, what about me? There is danger in this, danger in believing that your gift absolves you from doing your own work, danger in identifying so fully with feeling that you lose the power to act, danger in becoming so entangled in others that you never find your own center. This is what I mean when I say it's darker than you think. You do not merely carry emotions, you carry archetypes. You do not merely feel others, you merge with them. You dissolve the membrane between self and other and call it spirituality. But there is nothing spiritual about losing yourself. There is nothing enlightened about bypassing your own shadow. The true empath, if they wish to become whole, must begin with this question: what am I avoiding in myself by feeling so much for others? You see, every archetype carries light and shadow. The healer is also the wounded. The nurturer is also the martyr. The seer is also the blind. And when you do not integrate these opposites, you become them. You become the wounded healer who cannot heal themselves. You become the martyr who confuses exhaustion with purpose. You become the blind visionary who can only see others, but not their own suffering. And the unconscious will allow this until you collapse. And collapse you will, because the soul does not tolerate imbalance, you will begin to experience fatigue not as physical, but as existential. You will begin to dream of drowning, of being lost, of disappearing in crowds. You will cry and not know why. You will attract those who feed on your giving, not because you deserve pain, but because pain is familiar. It is the language your unconscious still believes is love. But I offer you this. You are not here to be used by the world. You are here to integrate yourself, and that self is not made of light alone. It is made of fire, of rage, of boundaries, of the primal. No, that precedes the sacred. Yes, it is made of solitude, where no one else can enter. It is made of power, not the power to control others, but the power to remain intact in the presence of another's suffering. When the empath begins to honor their own shadow, everything changes. You stop absorbing, and you start observing. You stop merging, and you start witnessing. You stop saving, and you start discerning. You begin to feel not everything but what is yours. And that discernment, that fierce clarity, is where empathy becomes sacred. Without it, you are a vessel with no bottom. With it, you become a temple, a space where others may be seen, but not at the cost of your own vision. A field where pain may be felt, but not where your soul is sacrificed. This is a deeper calling of the empath, not to be good, but to be whole, not to be loved, but to be known, not to rescue, but to remember. Remember who you were before you learned to disappear into other people's needs. Remember who you were before the archetype of the healer took hold of your nervous system. Remember that feeling deeply does not mean you must carry what was never yours. You were not born to bleed for others. You were born to become yourself, and that self, it includes your pain, it includes your anger, it includes your enough. The empath, when integrated, becomes a force, not soft, but sharp, not passive, but potent, not reactive, but radiant. You no longer dim your truth to keep others comfortable. You no longer shrink in the presence of pain. You stand in it, with it, and because of that, others find their own strength, not by feeding on yours, but by remembering their own. This is the paradox of true empathy, that by feeling less of others, you become more available to them, because you are no longer entangled. You are no longer fused. You are no longer losing your life force every time someone cries. You are rooted, and in that rootedness, something ancient stirs. The archetypal healer awakens not the wounded child playing savior, But the elder soul who knows to love others, I must first contain myself. You will not find this teaching in praise or sentiment. You will not be celebrated for saying no. You will not be applauded when you walk away from chaos. But your soul will know, it will breathe again, it will expand, it will remember, and then so will you. The soul that feels too much is often praised as holy. But I tell you, this unchecked empathy becomes a subtle form of possession, not by spirits in the folkloric sense, but by complexes, emotionally charged psychic fragments that split off when pain cannot be integrated. These fragments develop lives of their own, hijacking your choices, attaching to your relationships, animating your behaviors without your awareness, and the empath is especially vulnerable to this fragmentation because their psychic boundaries are not firm walls, but trembling veils. You believe you are helping, but are you repeating? You find yourself pulled towards the same archetype again and again, the wounded child, the broken lover, the angry soul. No one else dares to touch. You say, I see the good in them, but what you see is a projection. It is the exiled part of yourself, the unmet innocence, the silenced voice, the abandoned rage that you have draped over them. You do not love them as they are. You love what you hope they will become, and in this act of hope, you deny reality, you turn your back on the very truth that would set you free. There is danger here. The danger of spiritual bypassing, of mistaking your pain for intuition, the danger of psychic enmeshment, of believing that love means losing the self, the danger of archetypal inflation, where the healer becomes an identity so inflated it collapses under its own weight. The empath who does not turn inward becomes consumed by outward need. You will find yourself exhausted, not from caring, but from forgetting yourself entirely. And then you will wonder why your joy is gone, why your body aches, why your dreams turn dark. It is because you have become the sacrificial lamb of your own psyche, bleeding for causes that never ask to be yours. The unconscious does not care about your intentions, it cares about your integrity. If your empathy becomes your escape from facing your own darkness, it will turn on you gently. At first fatigue, small betrayals, unspoken resentment, then more loudly illness, addiction to emotional drama, sudden collapses of trust. Eventually, the very people you tried to save will become the mirrors of your disowned parts. And if you refuse to see this, they will turn cold or cruel, or they will disappear. And you will be left holding the grief of not being chosen again. But this grief is not new. It is ancestral. It is archetypal. It is the grief of the inner child who felt too much and had nowhere to place it. The grief of the inner priestess who was punished for seeing what others denied. The grief of the old soul who mistook empathy for destiny, forgetting that even the sacred must rest, must rage, must be whole. I once saw in a vision a woman made of water, beautiful, translucent, shimmering with love. Wherever she walked, flowers bloomed, people knelt before her and drank from her. But slowly, the woman began to sin. Her hands disappeared, and then her legs, then her face, and the people kept drinking, and she let them until there was nothing left but a puddle. And the puddle whispered, "But I gave them life, And in the silence, no one answered. This is the fate of the unawakened empath, to disappear and call it service, to bleed and call it light, to drown and call it love. But your soul was not born to be consumed. It was born to incarnate, to take form, to remember. And so I ask you now, not as a prophet, but as a mirror, where have you disappeared? Into whom have you poured yourself? And what would it mean to gather your waters back into yourself? Empathy is not meant to empty you. It is meant to reveal you, not the you that others use, but the you that chooses. And to choose, you must confront your shadow. The part of you that resents the very people you love, the part of you that manipulates through kindness, the part of you that says yes when your body screams no. These are not sins, they are signals. They are cries for your return. You must be willing to stop playing the saint. You must be willing to see that your sensitivity without sovereignty is a leash, that your caring without consciousness is a cage, that your love without discernment becomes codependency dressed in white. And yes, it will hurt to dismantle the identity, to stop saying, I am the one who helps, to start asking, what do I truly need? Because you have needed for so long and not dared to name it. You have longed for so long and not dared to claim it. You have been so trained to abandon yourself that when love finally comes, you do not recognize it, because it does not require your sacrifice. But real love never does. It does not need your pain as proof. It does not require your tears to feel valid. It simply meets you as you are, not as what you give, but as who you are willing to become. And you cannot become if you are always disappearing. So begin now. Begin with your rage. Begin with your exhaustion. Begin with the part of you that is tired of being good, tired of being needed, tired of being everything to everyone. That part of you is not your weakness. It is your threshold. It is the guardian at the gate, the final voice before you cross into wholeness. Listen, let it rise, let it burn, let it speak the truths you have buried beneath every I'm fine. You are not fine. You are unfinished. You are sacred. You are sovereign. You are more than your empathy. You are more than your pain. You are more than the role the world assigned to you. You are self-unfolding, breaking open, remembering. And if you follow that thread inward, if you sit with your shadow and do not run, you will begin to feel something you have not felt in years, yourself. To feel yourself again is both resurrection and death. It is resurrection, because you reanimate the parts that have been frozen in performance and sacrifice. It is death, because the persona, the mask of the eternal empath, the one who exists to soothe, to rescue, to absorb, must now fall away. And you will grieve that fall, because the mask was loved, it was needed, it earned you closeness, it spared you confrontation, but it also cost you your center. You will miss being wanted for your giving. You will miss the subtle power that came with always being available, but you will not miss the hollowness. You will not miss the collapse after another energetic rescue. You will not miss the silence you endured in order to stay lovable, because now your body no longer tolerates self-abandonment. Your nervous system rebels against the lie. Your dreams show you what your mouth still dares not speak. This is the initiation, the place where archetypal energy begins to shift inside you, not by force, but by recognition. You do not destroy the inner empath, you mature it. You bring it back from the edge of martyrdom. You restore its roots in discernment, sovereignty, and self-love. And that which once used you now serves you. Your sensitivity becomes precision. Your intuition becomes boundary. Your heart becomes a compass, not a prison. But beware, as you shift, the world you once served may resist your transformation. The broken souls you once attracted may rage against your silence. Those who fed on your overfunctioning will sense that you are no longer edible. And some will call it selfish. Some will say, you have changed. And they are right. You are no longer an offering. You are a force. And forces do not explain themselves. They move, they rise, they take up space. I remember a man who came to me in torment. He was a therapist, beloved by his clients, praised for his attunement, but he could not sleep. His dreams were haunted by images of drowning. He wept for strangers. He had no language for his own grief. When I asked about his childhood, his face stiffened. That's not relevant. He said, but the unconscious never lies. In his dreams, he was always saving others while his own house burned. That was his secret. He could feel everyone's pain, but not his own. And it was killing him slowly. This is the empath's unspoken wound, the denial of self in the name of service. But what is service? If it costs your soul, what is healing? If it leaves you fractured through empathy. Like true love begins at home. You cannot carry the world if your own spine is broken. You cannot hold another's tears if your own are locked behind your throat. And so I say to you, weep, weep for every moment you disappeared in someone else's chaos. Weep for the childhood role you never asked for. Weep for the touch you needed, but never received. And then let those tears become your water of return. The return to body, the voice to choice, to the sacred responsibility of living as your full self. Not just your light, not just your softness, but your fire. Empaths fear fire. You fear that anger will make you cruel. That desire will make you dangerous. That saying no will make you unkind. But this is the lie told to keep you small. Your fire is not destruction. It is discernment. It burns away illusion. It lights the path back to yourself. And without it, you are only shadowed light glowing for others while you disappear. There is no virtue in that. The unconscious does not reward self-denial. It waits. It stores what you abandon. It buries what you are not ready to see. And then it erupts through illness, through depression, through a sudden collapse of meaning. These moments are not breakdowns. They are revolts. The psyche demanding its due, the self saying, you will not leave me behind. So do not run from the revolt. Let it wash over you. Let it strip you bare of every false duty, every spiritualized trauma bond, every identity that kept you loved but not alive. Let it crack the mirror in which you only ever saw others, never yourself. And in the shards of that mirror, you will see it. the eye that has always been watching, the watcher behind the feelings, the self beneath the roles, the eternal witness. That is who you are, not the empath, not the savior, not the broken magnet. You are the self becoming conscious, and from that consciousness comes power, not power over others, but power over your own soul. Power to choose who enters your field. Power to hold presence without collapse. Power to walk away from stories that no longer serve. And this power, it feels like death at first, because it is the death of the small self. The self who earned love through self-betrayal, the self who feared anger more than violation, the self who believed that being loved meant being used. Let that self die. Mourn her, honor her. She did what she could, but now it is time for you to live, to walk into the archetypal fire and emerge not cleansed, but claimed. This is what the world needs, not more empaths who disappear into other people's wounds, but whole beings who can hold space without losing themselves. Be that, and when they come, those who still seek your old shape, look at them not with guilt, but with grace. Thank them. They were your teachers, your mirrors. They showed you who you no longer wish to be. And then release them and step forward into your new myth, the one where you are not the sacrifice, you are the source. This new myth begins not with a proclamation, but with silence, not the silence of repression, but the sacred hush that follows truth, fully spoken. For once you have called your patterns by name, once you have walked into your own underworld and returned with your forgotten voice, there is nothing more to prove. The war is over. You are no longer at the mercy of your own empathy. You are no longer pulled like a tide toward every wounded soul. You feel them, yes, but you are not them. You can see suffering without becoming it. You can stand in presence without collapse. This is the quiet strength of the integrated empath, the ability to remain open without being emptied, loving without being consumed, receptive without being overrun. There is a dignity now in your sorrow, a shape to your compassion, a border around your kindness. You give, but no longer at the cost of your spine. You listen, but no longer become the echo. You love, but now from fullness, not from a desperate need to matter. This is the great reversal. What once drained you now empowers you. What once broke you now becomes your boundary. And the broken souls still come, as they always will. But they do not stay. For something in your new presence tells them, this one is not for possession. This one no longer bleeds on command. This one is lit from within. You begin to attract not the ones who need you to save them, but the ones who have saved themselves, souls who are not looking for a rescuer, but a mirror, not to complete them, but to reflect what they have become. And in this, a sacred dance begins, no longer a looping trauma, but a spiral of growth. You see, individuation is not separation. It is union through distinction. The empath who knows their shadow becomes a bridge, not a sponge. You do not lose your sensitivity, you refine it. You do not lose your depth, you direct it. You become an embodied soul, and the soul embodied becomes medicine. Not the kind you force upon others, but the kind that radiates simply by being. You become misincarnate, not because you are perfect, but because you are whole, You are no longer waiting to be seen. You see yourself. You are no longer waiting to be healed. You tend to your own wound. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are already initiated. And when the old urges return, and you will know them not as failures, but as echoes. You will feel the pull to fix, to fold, to disappear, and instead of obeying, you will pause, you will breathe, you will remember, I am no longer that story. I no longer trade my soul for love. You will rise from the inside out, and the world will respond. Some will leave those who fed on your absence. Some will resist those who knew only your servitude. But the ones who stay, the ones who now arrive, will bow not to your pain, but to your presence. They will meet you in the space you once hid. And there, a new world begins. A world where empathy is not currency, but communion. A world where sensitivity is not suffering, but strength. A world where the empath becomes sovereign, and from that sovereignty becomes truly able to love. And so the warning has become an awakening. What began as darkness has become clarity, not by denying the shadow, but by dancing with it, not by silencing the pain, but by singing it into form. You are not what happened to you. You are what you chose to become. You are not the role the world wrote for you. You are the myth you are now writing. And this myth is not about bleeding. It is about becoming. So gather your waters, old soul. Speak your no with love. Let go of the ones who only loved your weakness, and return to the seat of your own being, to the temple within your chest, to the fire that never needed permission. This is your self, and the self, once remembered, cannot be forgotten. So walk, roll, seen, rooted, loved by you,